All right. Good evening. I'm Dr. Fell, Dr. David Fell from Revive Family Medicine here in Yelm, Washington. You can always find me at revivefamilymedicine.com, but that is my Washington address. For people around the country and other places, go to restoredlifenow.com. Now, if you've been frustrated with our healthcare system or even with our health and how we deal with things and how there's just tiny bits of information that go out over the internet promising some great results, promising that if you just buy this herb or do this detox protocol or whatever it might be, your problems will be taken care of. And there's no shortage of anecdotes and testimonials to support their product sales and some really fancy videos by some of these people over there. I don't have that fancy videos. I'm not a great artist either, although I kind of tout my art here. I want to talk a little bit about today a different model, a different approach to dealing with these things. We sometimes want to make things too simple, and sometimes we make things complicated that don't need to be complicated. In fact, getting healthy, reversing disease is often possible. We can often reverse the chronic diseases that have built up over the years. We can often reverse things like diabetes, hypertension. Even autoimmune diseases can be put into remission and sometimes gone for good. But how do we do that safely? And how does this one type of thing affect so many other things? There's all this new talk and people fear mongering about a resurgence of the virus, and the reality is our country did worse than most other countries out there, in part because we are the one of the least healthiest countries. And weight itself is its own determining factor. Outside of having hypertension, diabetes, and age, excess weight leads to excess inflammation. We don't really know the mechanisms when it comes to certain viruses, but it does lead to worse outcomes. But what can we do about it? We're just bombarded with so many ideas and so many promises. So the only thing I'm going to promise is to work hard and work with you and to share what I know. And if you want to work with me directly, that is wonderful. If not, just learn and share and start applying it, building this knowledge base so that we can take back control of our health. You see, I don't believe we have as much of a health care issue as we do have a health crisis, a crisis of things that we lead to complications with COVID, heart disease, strokes, and the disturbing rise in Alzheimer's disease. So I'm going to take a few minutes to go over a model that I think can help restore health. And I've been using it with my patients in person, and I'm turning it into a program. I'm turning it into a way of communicating it through means of social media and through a program we're developing, because people need this information, a systematic approach, a whole person approach. So stick with me for a couple of minutes here. If you look on the screen, you see behavior is something that is focused on almost exclusively when it comes to these. You learn a tiny bit of information and it tells you to change this behavior and then you're going to get good outcomes. Well, sometimes that happens, but just changing that behavior normally does not last. At least I haven't seen it last, even in my own life and in the lives of my patients. I haven't seen a dictation of do this, don't do this last, except there's been one patient that's been the exception to that. It's just not in our nature to keep doing something that is unfamiliar to us, something we don't understand the why that is so important. So one of the things to think about is this whole idea of our thoughts and our emotions and how they're connected together. I'm not one of these positive thinking people where you can just think positively and get your way out of disease. That's not what I'm talking about in the least. But our thoughts have a tremendous impact on our whole physiology. Think about it. Anytime you've ever had an experience to where something sudden happened, somebody said something, you experienced something, or even a smell or a sound or a taste brought back a memory, which then flooded your body with certain sensations, maybe your stomach. It could be a good fluttering sensation in the stomach when you're falling in love. It could be a turning of the stomach when you're anxious, or sweaty palms, or even changes in vision, in breath and heart rate in an instant. A thought can have such a tremendous impact on the rest of the whole body. We sometimes think of our brain and is not as much as an organ as it really is. And people talk about mental health issues. They're really brain issues, but they're really whole body issues because we're so connected. Our brains and our bodies, obviously, they're connected, but they're really connected in a way that we tend to neglect, and how quickly you can bring your blood pressure down with certain breathing techniques. Well, our thoughts feed to and our emotions, and our emotions or thoughts, those are chemical reactions, and they lead to behavior. They lead to most of our behavior. In fact, I would say emotions are the driving force behind most of our choices. At least it is for most people. And it's not always negative. We will choose to eat unhealthy things to celebrate. We've come up with these pseudo holidays, pseudo national and international holidays of whatever kinds to pick something to do that is putting something in our body that probably isn't healthy. And we celebrate with things that our choices are driven by emotions to pick it up. And I don't like now if I was to go to a birthday party, especially if some kid I don't know and they have some sheet cake from one of the box stores and they have this ice cream that really doesn't even lose its shape totally as it's melting, it's kind of foamy. I don't know why I would have ever put that in my body. And now with the understanding that I have, building that understanding, I wouldn't put it in my body and I wouldn't recommend anybody. You like it once in a while, but what's the once in a while? That emotions play with our memories or thoughts of how often once in a while is. Another part of this, so we have our thoughts, our emotions, our behavior. And for some people, emotions are a big driver. Anxiety can be a big driver of the choices that are made to calm ourselves. We crave certain things, but that's not the only thing that plays into it. Our whole environment, our culture, our family, our upbringing. But so often, if you look on the left side there, it says information. So often we stop with a tidbit of information. I had a patient ask me once, just give me a list of what I should and shouldn't eat, and I'll do it. And I'm like, really? And they didn't, and they wouldn't. That doesn't work. But building knowledge, and that knowledge that turns into understanding. And then when you start to understand, you can start to take control back. Not 100% of the time, but if we could go from making 60 to 70% emotion driven decisions down to 30%, that would just all of a sudden change behavior significantly without even doing extra things. We would be choosing, most of us know several of the things that are healthy, but we don't make those choices. And there's a reason we don't make those choices. Sometimes we just don't have the knowledge of what's healthy, but often we don't know how to make that choice. We don't know how to make it. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to prepare for it. We aren't ready to make those choices. And so we go with the emotion of the moment. All of us do, even I do. And this plays into our relationship with food and what we demand from our food. But that's a topic for another time. There's another part of this that affects our behavior and our outcomes. It's our own biology. You know, your biology can drive you to do things. For example, when you don't get a good night's sleep, you tend to eat more. In fact, you tend to crave more simple carbohydrates because the hormones in your biology have changed. The leptin, ghrelin, and other hormones have changed that drive us to make choices that we wouldn't have made if we had a good night's sleep. That's an example of biology. Sometimes thyroid issues can drive weight gain or weight loss or muscle mass loss, and an example of Graves' disease. And our gut microbiome, for example, plays a huge role. You know, they outnumber us. There are more microorganisms in our intestine than the cells in the rest of our body. And they can play a role in our appetites. They can play a role with our immune system. They can play a role with the health of the intestine and what it allows across the barriers and how things are digested or not digested. They play a key role in not just our gut, not just if we can have a good soft bowel movement, but they play a role in our whole body in regulating it. Our hormones can do that as well. Excess cortisol can drive this. And sometimes emotions drive the excess cortisol. Sometimes there's other biological things driving the excess cortisol. And so diagnostic tests can sometimes help figure out what is the root cause of what's going on in our bodies. And sometimes medications can help. If somebody's in a flare, a really powerful flare of certain autoimmune diseases, then suppressing that for a short period of time with steroids could be the right move. But that's not going to solve the underlying problem. It's not even going to deal with it in a way that brings health and healing to the body. One of my goals is to create that environment, that knowledge, that understanding, and the skills to where our bodies can heal, our bodies can repair to the extent that they can. Our bodies are amazing. They are absolutely amazing. We are so wonderfully designed that we can abuse our bodies in so many ways for year on year on year and maybe not notice it completely of what's going on, at least not even get to a point of it being a diagnosable condition. Sometimes why wait until that happens when we know we can do things to prevent these horrible things from happening, the cardiovascular disease, cancers, and Alzheimer's and dementia. We can do things now to prevent them from happening. And we can often do things to reverse many of those things, or at least stop them in their tracks. And that happens when we take a holistic and a whole person approach. But there's still one more thing to consider in this whole person approach, and that is our core values and our core beliefs. Our core values and beliefs can drive us in a healthy direction, or they can pull us in an unhealthy direction. It's a sad number of people, sad number of my patients who have dealt with emotional things in their life, of things they've been told and things they've experienced that leave them sometimes consciously, and sometimes they end up dealing with it subconsciously, and it manifests itself in self-sabotaging, maybe feelings of guilt and shame, or feelings of inadequacy and not worthiness, or feelings of I have to take care of others and not myself. All of these beliefs can get in the way of us getting healthy. At the same time, a good, healthy belief that you are designed for a purpose, that there is meaning to and purpose to life, and that your body can heal and repair and restore, that is a core belief, can drive you to make healthier choices with hope, knowing that your body can heal and be restored. Our values play into this as well. Well, that is a quick overview of a very complex problem. And there is no simplistic solution. I wish I could just offer you some kind of capsule, scour the planet, and find a couple of herbs that will reverse whatever condition you have. I do use herbal medicine quite a bit. I also use conventional medicine for my patients here in Washington and perform diagnostic procedures and tests. For people in other places, I don't do that. I'm not licensed in your jurisdiction, but I can help you understand what is going on and formulate a plan you can take to your healthcare provider, and also what herbs and supplements may be helpful, and understand how certain medications can either help or hinder that process. If you're interested in reaching out, please Revive Family Medicine here in Washington and Restored Life Now. I look forward to working with you, and I hope you all experience wonderful health and vitality, great sleep, energy, and victory in all areas of your life. I look forward to meeting with you again in the next video.